All right, really excited for this. Three-time All-Star and NBA champion Antoine Walker joining the show now. Antoine, thanks so much for jumping on and joining us today. We're going through the 2006 NBA Finals, and we wanted to talk to you about it. And we're doing a rewatch series for the show. And one of the things that stood out is after two games, obviously you guys are 0-2, but I gotta be honest, it did not look good for you guys after those two games. And you had national media writing you guys off, basically crowning the Mavericks. And I'm just curious, take us inside the locker room after those first two games in Dallas, those two losses. What are you guys saying to each other? What is Pat Riley's message to you guys? And did you kind of know what was in store for you guys coming back to Miami?
Well, for me personally, I definitely didn't know what was in store, and I can recall going to Shaq and just was like, "Yo, where are we at right now?" And Shaq was like, "Don't worry, we're going home. We got an opportunity. We got 3 games at home. We just got to get one." But we never wavered, as crazy as it sounds, because they kind of handled us pretty well both games. They wasn't really close games, so but we felt confident. We felt like Shaq wasn't able to put his imprint on the game because of foul trouble, and we felt like we would defend them well enough. Well, at least Dirk for the most part, even though we know how tough Dirk was back then, but we still felt like we was confident if we can get one at home, that we can get back in this series. So Game 3 was pivotal. We knew what we had to do, but a very confident group. It wasn't like nobody pointing any fingers, but once Shaq gave me the okay, like we're gonna be good. For me personally, I felt good going into Game 3, moving on throughout the rest of the series.
I think us in the media, we talk about adjustments. Hey, this team's got to make adjustments. They got to make an adjustment and this kind of stuff. And I don't know that we really know what we're talking about when we say those things. Did you guys make any strategic changes or adjustments in that series that you think really changed things?
No, I think, one thing about Coach Riley, he's very consistent. He's not afraid to make changes if he feels like something is not working. But we just stayed stubborn. We kind of stayed with our game plan, especially defensively. We wanted to keep multiple bodies at Dirk. So myself, Posey, and UD wanted to continue to guard them, keep giving them different looks. And then offensively, we knew D Wade was in one of those rhythms. It's just kind of like, and we deferred. We deferred to D Wade, maybe sometimes a little bit too much, but he had an unbelievable series. So we wanted to play off him. Guys understood their role. He was going to be the first option. We tried to establish Shaq inside, but that was a tough series for Shaq. He was in foul trouble a lot in most of those games. So we couldn't really get him going. But we knew Alonzo was playing at a very, very high level too. So we used Zoe a lot, but we never changed our game plan. Our whole thing was to make sure we put multiple bodies on Dirk, keep him working, make it hard for him to score. We knew he was going to score, but we stayed with the same game plan.
You mentioned deferring to Dwyane there, and I think that's such a big thing because, of course, in hindsight, watching his incredibly historic performance, and I don't think anybody really at the time expected that from him. Was there some kind of an understanding inside the locker room that Dwyane was able to take over and dominate in the way that Shaq wasn't able to over the first couple of games of the series?
Well, you never know. Every series is different, and you go into each series, you don't know who's going to have the hot hand. And Dwyane got it going. You just can tell that this was going to be one of those series. Started to make his jump shot, and you guys remember this. Dwyane wasn't necessarily a great three-point shooter, jump shooter. Dwyane was a slasher, get to the basket, get to the foul line, but he was making jump shots. He was making timely threes. So this is like one of them series that we knew we were going to have to play off him and do all the little things. And this was from everybody. Everybody's going to have to pitch in, do the little things, and let's let this guy carry us to the promised land.
You mentioned Pat Riley, and his, just the way he handled things. But, a lot of people kind of forget how badly that season started. Obviously, you had Stan Van Gundy as the head coach. Then he resigned, although there's some debate about that still. But then you had Shaq's injury as well. At the start of the season, when things were going so badly, what were the expectations from you as far as what this team was able to accomplish? You mentioned that you weren't able to, you didn't waver during the finals, but at the start of the season, I don't think anybody really had those kinds of expectations that you'd be able to compete in the for an NBA championship at the start of the season, especially given how everything started off so badly?
Well, just give you a little story, just for me personally, to the team part of it. I mean, when I came in, I was the guy that averaged 20 and 10, and Stan called me on the phone. I never forget, and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna have to bring you off the bench." And he was like, we like UD in the starting lineup. I'm gonna run all the plays for D Wade and Shaq in the beginning of games, so I can run more things for you coming off the bench. And that was already a wake-up call for me as a player, because obviously my goals and everything, this is the first time in my career that I'm thinking championship only. So what sacrifice do I have to make this work? So I understood the excitement, understood what I had to do. So I came off the bench the first 20 games of the season. And obviously we didn't get off to a bad start. I think Shaq got hurt either game one or game two.
Game two.
So he missed a significant amount of time. And we was like 10 and 10. I mean, we were struggling to find our identity. You talking about 8, 9 new guys on the team together. But I would say this, and one thing I would say about this team, the team that a lot of people understand, and you guys know from following, we had that slogan, 15 strong.
Yeah.
This group never fought, never bitched at each other, never did anything that was going to deter us from the common goal of winning the championship. And we knew that. And that doesn't happen a lot, especially when the expectations are to win an NBA title. We had nothing to do with the Pat Riley coming down. So I think that's where it all started at. We were 10 and 10, and Pat came down and just changed everything. Kind of pretty much changed the culture. Really emphasized this is about championships. This is about sacrificing. We're going to do whatever it takes to win. And the first thing for me personally, he put me back in the starting lineup. He told me, you have to learn how to play with those guys. He felt like I was the best guy to throw it, besides Jason Williams, to throw it inside and space the floor. And he said, you just got to figure it out, how to play with them. And one thing he did that I thought was great, he would always sub me out first. If you watch that team, I was the one guy that came out first so I could play with the second unit. And that was one of the strategies that we had that worked really well. And we kind of rotated. Me, Posey, and Udonis kind of, really rotated that small forward to power forward thing, and it really worked out. So he came in and changed things, gave guys direct roles on what they're going to be. We got down to maybe started playing 9 guys. Yeah. He wasn't playing, 12, 15 guys. He was playing 9 guys. We got a rotation down. And everything was about a championship, even the way we kind of carried the season out. I remember the last 7, 8 games, we had kind of secured a playoff spot. And he came in there and told us, he said, what seed do you guys want to be? We can play this all the way out, and you can figure out we can be as high a seed that we can be. He said, one thing I think we should have is home court advantage. And I think we end up being a 3 seed in the playoffs. He was a 2 or 3 seed.
2 seed, yeah, second seed.
2 seed, yeah. And so we ended up being a 2 seed. But I remember that because it was like the last 3, 4 games, and I was like, you guys want games off, or you want to play this thing all the way through? And that was that was the goal. And once guys got locked in, we wanted to have home court advantage, and we ended up winning 52 games and making it a little above average season for ourselves.
Yeah, I'd say so. You mentioned, the changes with Riley. It's not a knock on Stan, but what was it about Riley and his ability to connect with you all as players and as people that was maybe a little different than what Van Gundy had been able to do during the first few games of the season? Obviously, you weren't there the previous 2 years when he had been coaching the team. He had gone a lot of those particular groups, but he kind of seemed like it lost the locker room a little bit towards the end of his tenure. What was different about Van Gundy and Riley as head coaches?
I think Stan was a screamer yeller. Every guy doesn't take well to that.
Yeah.
And then you think about myself, Gary, Jason Williams, Posey, the 4 or 5 guys that got added to that team. I mean, that's different. You brought in veteran guys that knew how to play, that you didn't have to do that with. And I know that's Stan's personality. This is how he coaches. But Pat was more of a veteran coach. He knew how to handle players. He held you accountable in film sessions. It was real simple. It was not a chewing out process. It was more like you got to man up and do your job. and he puts you on Front Street. It's just like if you're late for practice, you pay your fine and get on the court. You know what I mean? You gotta, you're going to get fined. It's like body fat and weight every week. Every Monday you're going to get weighed, body fat, and when you don't make it, you get fined. It's not you're held accountable. He treats you like a man, and the rules and regulations to what it was. And I think guys respected that. And I think that's what we really held our hat on. And like I said, I can't overstate how close we were. This is the one team, especially in the NBA, that very seldom you would not catch 6 or 7 or 8 guys at dinner on a road trip. That's rare in the NBA where you see guys usually go their own way, and you'll catch 1 or 2 guys, but you will see 7, 8 guys hanging together, kicking it. And even at home, we was hanging together, going to each other's house and all type of team functions. So I think all that played a part in us winning the championship.
Who got fined the most?
Oh, that's tough. Well, it depends, because really the most of the fines came from body fat and weight. Pat was a real stickler on that. And, and if you was 1% off of what you're supposed to be, he was fining you for it. So that kind of spread it throughout the whole team. Everybody got a couple of those.
You could tell us it was Shaq. You could say it.
Shaq didn't like doing it. Shaq used to put baby oil on, so he, so he couldn't get they couldn't get the body fat thing right.
Did that work?
I mean, it's to piss the train off. I don't know if it worked.
It can't pinch the skin as closely with all that baby oil.
Right, there you go. So he used to oil up. So on Monday, he used to oil up, put baby oil on to mess with the strength and conditioning coach.
That's great. So to go back to the 2006 finals, at that point, again, you guys are down 0-2. At that point in the league history, it had only been like a team had only come back down from 2-0 twice in the history of the league. And by 2006, it hadn't been done in almost 30 years. I think when we talk about the 2006 finals, there's so many great stories about it. Dwyane Wade emerging and the first championship in Miami Heat franchise history. But in terms of the comeback and just how rare it was at that point, do you think that you guys or that people fully appreciate what it was that you accomplished in coming back down from 0-2 and not losing again at all? Like, you guys won 4 straight games.
No, I don't think people really appreciate it and know how actually great of a team that was. I always tell people one thing that's special about that team I played with 4 Hall of Famers, man. You know what I mean? I played with Gary, Alonzo, D. Wade, and Shaq. D. Wade will be a Hall of Famer here soon. And that's special. I played for a Hall of Fame coach in Pat Riley. Eric Spoelstra, head assistant at the time, he'll be a Hall of Fame, in the Hall of Fame. It's just a special group of guys that I play with, and people don't understand that. I think people, what you just said, don't understand how great of a finals Dwyane Wade had. We talk about some of these LeBron and, Steph Curry and Michael. We talk about all these other guys, NBA finals, and Dwyane Wade, to me, that's a top 5 ever NBA finals, the performance that he put on. So I just think that championship is very special. We was the first one to get one in Miami. We think about the expansion team getting there. Maybe because it's that, you kind of devalue it a little bit. But I think it's one that you come back from 0-2 against those odds. And these were very good games, entertaining games that went down to the wire, where you had to make plays late. Was great. And it's hard to beat a team 4 times, let alone in the NBA finals and in the playoffs. It's just hard to do it. So I think people got to understand how hard that was and what we really accomplished.
When you think about Dwyane Wade, I agree with you. I think it was one of the great finals ever. And maybe just because at this point, it's almost 20 years ago and we just don't remember it. And there's been so many great performances since then, but it has to be up there. And the way D Wade did it, he just sort of came onto the scene, and then it felt like he just snatched the finals. He was like, this is mine now. And when you think back, and maybe you're hanging out, talking to your buds or whatever you're doing, and you want to go to one Dwyane Wade story, what is the story that you like to tell?
I always like to tell, because when I got there, obviously when I got there, he had just come off really making an impact that first year. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals. Shaq had just got there. But the one thing that I can always say, the work that he put in, watching him work with Eric Spoelstra every day, to expand his game, to become a better jump shot shooter, a better mid-range player, to now be able to make the occasional three-point shot. From when the beginning of the season where everything was to the basket, Dwyane, he played the most of the game on the floor, from driving to the basket all the time, getting fouled. But the one thing I always tell people, to watch him expand his game was something special. And then to see it all come together at the most important time and the most pivotal time of the season in the finals was remarkable to see.
In watching the broadcast, I had totally forgotten that you had briefly played with Dallas. Like I thought in the timeline of your career that had happened after your time in Miami, but
no, I played a whole year in Dallas.
That's right. That's right. Did you have an edge? Playing against your former teammates for the Mavericks, did you see anything while you were out on the floor that maybe you could relate to the rest of the guys or even Coach Riley about what, their tendencies were and things of that sort? I know it was different coaching, right? Because Avery Johnson wasn't the coach at that time, but it was still the same team, basically. Was there anything that you could point out and say, oh, I know what they're doing, or I know what they're going to run?
For me, more was more about Dirk, probably, and giving them tidbits on Dirk. Played a full season with him, and knowing that you have to be physical with him, get him off the spot, knowing he's resilient, that he, even though you've been physical with him, he's going to come back, and he's relentless. So just really emphasizing how good Dirk really was as a player. And I think that's where my expertise came in at. Obviously, I played under Don Nelson. Avery Johnson was the coach with them, and they had some other players, but even Josh Howard was obviously there in Dallas with me, Marquise Daniels. So I knew I had some tidbits, and I guarded Josh, and so I knew some things that can help him throughout the scouting report. But mainly where my expertise came at in playing in Dallas was mainly just really showing guys, telling guys how we can be physical with Dirk and how we can play him.
Hey, you guys did a really good job of limiting him, or at least keeping him from going off on a number of games. I know, like between you, Pose, UD, all of you had your chances to guard him, but what was the key? Was it just, like you said, being physical or getting him off of his spots, so that he wouldn't be able to get that jump shot going?
Oh yeah, without question, and not fouling. Try to defend him without fouling, which is tough to do, and make him take tough shots. But I think because he got so many different looks, UD is going to be really physical with him and front him and do a lot of things. Posey's got long arms. He's, quick. And, then I'm coming in, giving him a different look. So I think it's different. The different looks kind of probably warn him a little bit. Because, as an offensive player, when, one guy's guarding you throughout a series, you kind of figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. But we're giving him multiple looks and just try not to give him a lot of open shots. We know he's going to make tough shots, and we just try not to give him too many open ones.
I always forget this, but when watching these games again, the broadcast always talks about Dallas's depth, like they're the much deeper team and everything else like that. But at the time, I remember thinking to myself, well, Miami's pretty damn deep too. Like you had Pose, UD, Zoe, GP, all of you guys played big roles during the finals. Was there a sense that maybe the team wasn't getting the respect that you deserved at that point in time?
Well, we've never felt, we know nobody gave us any respect. I mean, when you put a team together like that and you add five or six new guys on the team, we knew people didn't give us respect. We knew we had to earn it. But one thing that we did, we knew our roles. And that's something that usually never happens. It takes a while or a year for a team to figure out their roles. Everybody knew their role. We knew Gary and James Posey were going to close games out because of their defense. We knew what Alonzo brought defensively. I knew that when in that second unit, I can let a guy beat me off the dribble, and I knew Alonzo was going to be there to challenge them at the rim. We never had to fight over the ball, and the second unit, they knew that Rouse was going to run a ton of pick and rolls for me and turn me out in the post and get my opportunities on the offensive end. We knew late in the games that we were going to spread the floor and let D-Wade go on the pick and roll and ISO. So I think that's what was special, that we all knew our role and we never fought for the ball or fought for situations. We knew everybody knew their role, and that's what was great about it.
Antoine, you played both forward positions. If I remember right, you would even play center every once in a while in Boston and a little bit in Miami. And I'm not saying this just because you're on the show, but you were very much ahead of your time, I think, as a positionless kind of player. Yeah. I mean, you had a great career, so I'm not really sure how to ask this question, but I just wonder if you look at the game the way it's played now, and almost kind of wish you could have played in a game that was coached and sort of stylized the way it is now? Not saying you regret anything from your career, but I just wonder what you think about that kind of thing.
It's weird. I think I make it to the NBA. I made it to the NBA because of my versatility and being able to do multiple things on the court. And then when I got in the league, it's just sometimes if you don't play for the right coach, that's going to allow you to do that. I was very fortunate to play for Rick Pitino early in my career, Jim O'Brien. Those guys coached me in college, so they knew my skill set better than anybody. You talked about the Dallas year. My Dallas year, I felt like was my best year skill-wise. And if and numbers don't explain how I felt and the way Don Nelson used me. Played all 5 positions, played a lot of point guard, different types of pick and rolls. Just being able to use my full skill level was just a fun year for me. I played all 82 games. I think we won 52 games there. We ended up getting eliminated in the first round by Sacramento, but just individually, I felt so good after that season from my skill level. But, I wish I played in this era. You know how much criticism I took for shooting threes.
Yes.
Being in Boston with the media there, and all those things. I mean, I took a lot. A funny story. So when I got traded to Dallas, the first thing Don Nelson told me, he said, "I don't want you dancing." He said, it was weird. It was like the funniest thing is like, "I don't want you dancing." It's like, I don't want you doing that here. And I don't know, he's old school or whatever, but I mean, I respect that, and I obviously respected Don Nelson, but just my style of playing, the way I played was just not as acceptable as what guys are getting away with now and the way the game is played now. I always tell guys I made a lot of money playing the game when I played, but I'm probably missing out about $200 million if I was playing now. You know what I mean? It's just because the game fits me better. I mean, think about it. I was shooting 8, 9 threes a game, and people were going crazy on me. Should they shooting 50 threes a game as a team, and you got guys shooting 14, 15 threes a night. Individually. So just imagine I was playing this time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember not knowing why you were shooting so many threes back then. Yeah. You were like, I wasn't ready for it. Just people. It was just so new. People didn't really understand what the point of it was. But I wonder if you look at anybody in the NBA today that reminds you maybe of yourself when you were playing. If there's a player out there whose game you recognize as maybe being close to how you played.
I really like Draymond Green's game. I think obviously I don't think he shoots it like I did from the 3, but I think his versatility. He emphasized a little bit more on defense than I did when I played, but I'm talking about offensively as far as passing, screening, getting guys shots, and those type of things. I like the way he plays, pushing the fast break and creating opportunities on the break. Obviously, then there's other guys that are great that I love watching. Obviously, Giannis. Is terrific. LeBron James, his versatility at his side. Kevin Durant. I really like the guys that 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", that can step out on the perimeter, make a 3, and also push the break. I love those guys.
The Heat need a power forward right now, right?
Heat need a lot right now because they want to compete again. They lost. PJ Tucker was a bit lost. That's going to be a big loss to them. I don't know if they're going to replace him.
You think if Jimmy makes that shot in Game 7, if that goes in, do you think the Heat can win the finals last year over the Warriors?
I think they would have had a better shot. I don't know if they could have scored enough to keep up with the Warriors. But defensively, they would have been so stingy. Yeah. And that's where the Heat and the game plan would have been a lot different than the Celtics. I hate to take away from Golden State, but if you watch and you go back and watch the film, Boston gave Golden State that championship. I was at Game 4. They up 4 or 5 with 4 minutes to go, and they probably took 7 straight 3-point shots. And it wasn't from Jason Tatum. It wasn't from the best player on the floor. And then the last 2 games, you turn it over combined 42, 43 times in 2 games against a team like Golden State, there's no way you can win. So you're really beating yourself. So I believe the Heat, because they would have been a little bit more disciplined. Yeah. And, and Eric Spoelstra has been there before. I thought Udoka did a terrific job, but Eric Spoelstra's been there before. It'd have been a little different. Now, where it could have been problems at, I think the Heat were wearing down physically.
Yeah.
Physically they were wearing down. I don't know how much Jimmy Butler would have had left in the tank.
It's true.
So that's the only thing that I could think about that may have stopped Miami in the finals. But it still was a terrific team. I bring a terrific season. Jimmy Butler was simply amazing.
I know it's different for everybody. So what was it like for you to win a championship? Obviously you had achieved playoff success with Boston. You had, done a lot in your career individually, but to be a part of this team and be able to prove all the doubters wrong, to be able to win a ring, what was that feeling like?
Oh, it was unbelievable. It's what you live for as a professional athlete. I always tell people, the first thing is to make it. We all want to make it to the league, and I was able to accomplish that. And then you want to be the best player you possibly can be. And, got to all-star status and start to be one of the elite guys in the league. And then the next part is to get paid and make some money, make a bunch of money. And then that last thing is to get that ring. And I feel like I accomplished all those things. And that's one thing that I look back on. And like I said, this ring is special. I won one in college that also is very near and dear to me. Is winning one in college is special too. But the one in the league is winning with that group of guys that I won it with. I'll never forget that, being able to win it with Gary and Alonzo and D Wade and Shaq and Posey and UD, Jay Will. Just a special bond, and the respect that I have for them and what we was able to accomplish. And you guys alluded to it earlier, that it was a difficult season. It did start off bad. It wasn't all peaches and cream. And to know that we can fight through it and stay together and not waver from what the goal was, and that's to win the title, is special. And it's funny, I'll tell you guys a story. During the pandemic, when the world was in chaos, we got together on a conference call. I think you guys may have saw a little couple of clips of it.
We did.
We got together on a Zoom call, and that was just so special to be able to go back and reminisce on the season and the jokes, the funs, the fights, the arguments. And one thing that was good, a lot of the negativity never got out to the public, which was great. But that was a historic time to be able to be on the call and share those jokes and to share the body fat jokes and all of the mistakes that we made. Shaq, D Wade, and Gary Payton in the playoffs, getting in the huge fight, and just all the things that we kind of went through to get to that moment was special.
Speaking of championships, while we have you here, the great Bill Russell passing away. You obviously spent a lot of your career in Boston. I'm just curious. I'm sure you have to have some sort of Bill Russell story.
I was very fortunate, man. When I got drafted by the Celtics in '96, all the legends were still involved with the organization. ML Carr was the GM head coach. Dennis Johnson was the assistant coach. Casey Jones was the other assistant coach. Tommy Heinsohn was doing radio. Cousy was around. Larry Bird was around. Red Auerbach was around, and as well as Bill Russell. So I got to spend a lot of time with Bill. Bill would come to practices. For my first 4 years, Bill was around a ton. And he was at games and he would give advices. I posted some on Instagram, a picture of me and Bill talking, and I got 2 other pictures in my house of that I took with Bill. But true Celtic, always talked to me about winning. Everything was all about winning, never about individual play. Talked to me about getting better on a consistent basis, me and Paul. And the Celtic organization at the time was going through, had lost Len Bias, then Reggie Lewis, and then I got drafted, and then Paul after that. So they're starting to turn the corner. But just one of those, when he passed away, just make you feel even special to be a part of that organization. I consider Boston my second home. And it's tough because I won a championship in Miami and I have great memories there as well. But it's something about being a part of that organization that has a special place in my heart. And all the ex-players make you feel that way as well when you're around them. And we did our 70, I didn't even realize this, that the Celtics are one of the few teams, I think maybe 6 teams that's been in existence for the whole 75 years.
Yeah.
And we did a dinner in March, and just to be a part of the history and to be able to talk and be up there with all those legends is a special moment. So we lost an icon, man. We lost somebody that's special. One thing I can say that I learned that I feel bad about, I didn't realize how much of an activist and what he did off the court until he passed away. So it made me read and learn more about him, and what he had to endure is remarkable. Playing in the 60s and 70s was crazy, man, what he had to go through as a player. And to see him go through that and to take an active role as an activist and still play basketball, my hat's off to him, one of the special guys to ever do it.
Yeah, I think we all kind of went through the same thing, reading everything afterwards. And you think you know everything about him, and then you'll just hear a couple more stories. And that's why I felt compelled to ask you, because it's just, you know, you take that chance to learn more about him. This was great. Antoine Walker, thank you so much for joining the show. That was awesome. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.